So when Getty's doing Conan the Barbarian, I'm here for it. Oh, what is this? How they fix One Piece sound effects? Talk to me.
Did it. They finally goddamn did it. After nearly 3 decades of the One Piece anime's existence, they have finally fixed something that I have been complaining about for many, many years. The One Piece anime gets a lot of flack for a lot of things. The pacing, the fan service, the delusions of an entire company somehow having a grudge against a single character. But the one thing that I have hated for nearly the past decade of my life, and have seen more and more people catch on to as time goes by, is One Piece's absolutely horrendous sound design. I feel
the animator slash director Hone has made several comments about how One Piece, and mind you, this person actually works on the show, how the sound design has been atrocious. It's been god awful.
Very strongly about this.
Like I remember specifically Hone talked about the sound design for Vincent Chansar's fight that he animated with Kizaru vs. Luffy, and how it was phenomenal to look at, but the sound design was so poor that it actually made him very upset because visually it was phenomenal.
To say the least. I've complained about it to my friends. I've had this idea for a video in my head since 2019, right next to a very
Graham, no. Hone has made comments prior to Kizaru versus Luffy. I believe he made a comment about Kaido versus Luffy too. Like he's made comments. I think it was Kaido versus Luffy episode 1074. That episode I think also got him tilted too because that was a phenomenal fight scene, but the stuff sucked. And he was like, "Yo, what the fuck? We did all this work on this site, on this fight scene. It was phenomenal, and the sound effects just never matched the visuals ever." So he's done that in One Country too, where Hone was very, very, very upset. Again, anime slash director.
Yeah, for the Promised Neverland.
Toei really used 1999 sound effects being a 50. Yes, absolutely, bro. They kept on using because it was the guy that worked on Dragon Ball Z. Right? The guy that did Dragon Ball Z sound effects, like those iconic sound effects, he is a legend in the industry. And because of that, they decided to keep him, even though he never updated his style of animation or style of sound effects for other franchises. So I believe, and I could be wrong here too, but I believe if you also check out The Adventure of Dai, which is a very long-running show too, I think they also use the same sound effects as Dragon Ball Z and One Piece. I'm almost positive.
And I even said in my Wit piece,
I'm assuming that they would take Kizaru versus Luffy. Yeah.
Video from a little while back, I could make an entire video about everything wrong with Toei's sound design for One Piece. So it's time to own up to that. It's time to talk about why One Piece's audio was a catastrophe, but by some kind of miracle has had a significant glow up with the start of the recent Elbaf arc.
Because they fired the dude.
And the first thing I want to start with, before we get into anything else, am I crazy? Are all of these issues with the audio just in my head? Look at these people on the Wit Piece video. They don't notice anything. They like the audio. They like the sound effects. Is this just another one of the many, many figmented things that One Piece fans make up to complain about yet another thing that doesn't actually matter? Well, the short answer is no. No, it's not. And we will be systematically diving into why this has been a genuine issue for the anime for a very long time. But you have to realize that it's not just me saying this. Maybe it was 10 years ago, but not anymore, man. This has become such a noticeable issue within the anime's production that even the One Piece anime's own staff have talked about how bad the sound design is. Vincent Chansar...
Vincent Chansar? Yeah, sure. Yeah, exactly, yeah.
...couldn't hide his disappointment in the sound design for one of his sequences.
Yes, exactly.
Hone, the creator of One Piece's greatest action scene within 1074...
Yeah, bro! He's the exact same fucking scene that I commented on with the exact same episode and the exact same dude. See, Chad, we know this shit. We know ball. Hone 1074. He said, "Yo, this shit is not good."
Was literally calling for the sound team to be
also nice time, nice editing style. It's pretty nice.
Fired because of how unprofessional their work was. It can't be understated. For a production this high profile, done by this big of a studio, One Piece's sound design for a very long time was simply unacceptable. Let's start with the sound effects themselves, because this is where the actual contention comes in. People don't like change, and they don't want to lose the precious audio that they've become accustomed to.
The problem is that, the problem though is and this is a big deal too. There were some, I remember there was, I think it was around Whole Cake Island. I could be wrong here. But I remember there was a leak, or there was some sort of database breach, and then they had lost a lot of files because of that breach or leaked. I think Toei. And I think from then on, the sound got worse. because there were some old school sound effects that they had back in the day that they have never used ever again in the story. And I don't know why. Like for example, Chad. All right, let me just give you an example real quick, right? One of these songs that I liked a lot was for Captain Kuro. When Homo did the out-of-back cat attack. Yeah, so like there is something that I see, like, so this is how they depicted speed back in the day. This is again Captain Kuro anime. So this is like 1999 or 1998. And that I thought was actually a pretty damn dope sound effect. Like that sort of echoey explosion. Like they never use like that specific sound effect. They've never used ever. And then also, if you go back to the original fight against Rob Lucci and Luffy or any of the CP agents, they Cyberpole, not the Chris Hansen ones. They had sound effects back in the day that were way more impactful, but then they changed to where, let me see here. You're right here. Yeah, okay, so like, yo, bro, I have the files, bro. Yo, I have files, man. I got files. I got data. I got evidence. So this is how Geppo used to sound. Geppo! So Geppo in like 2007 sounded like that. It had like an intensity to it. There was a shockwave. Geppo! Yeah, it sounded heavy, but now it sounds so much lighter whenever you hear them use Geppo now. I'm almost positive that there was some sort of database breach and then they lost files. I'm almost positive. Yeah, like it just sounds so much heavier than the current version of Moonwalk, Geppo. The same thing for I think for Shave. It sounds different too. Like they, I've noticed that like over the course of time, there were some sound effects that they had that were actually pretty damn good, but then they lost them for some reason, or they just changed them and they were like worse. In many respects, they were worse. You play that scene when Sanji used Geppo on Fishman Island. Oh yeah. Great, yeah. Skywalk, yeah. Speaking of Sanji, you see Taz just scarfing out some bullshit, dude. Fuck it, Taz. Yeah. Like, hear that sound now? Like that's how Soundwalk sounded when he was on Fishman Island, like the sound, like the Skywalk. Yeah, like sound. So like you can hear how it has less impact. It's more like a very subtle sound effect. Yeah, you see, like you can hear how it's very like compared to what I played just now. That's a very sort of like timid, echoey, has like reverberations to it, but it's not heavy. Back in the day, it was heavy. Like Geppo was heavy back in the day. Like you can hear that. Boom. Yeah. So like they changed the sound effect from the original Sky, I guess Moonwalk, and then Sanji's version was just Skywalk. I think they upgraded it for Egghead. Let me see here. Can I find Egghead, Sanji versus Kizaru? I don't know if I'm gonna find this though. It's like when Sanji tries to attack Kizaru and the Kizaru dodges that shit. It's not here, is it? Yeah, okay. There's more of an echo to it, I think now, where like you just have that like echo. It sounds a little bit heavier. I forgot. There's one where like Sanji, what was it? Sanji, he runs up and he tries to help out against Kizaru, who's taking a Vegapunk. Either way, fuck it. The whole point here is that you can see how like they change across the time, but like they're not better. They're worse in some cases, I'd argue.
Over the past 1,000 episodes. And I definitely empathize with that. One Piece's sound design might not be perfect, but there is absolutely an identity in this sound that tells you that you're listening to One Piece. And if you were to change that, if you were to suddenly make these One Piece with modern sound effects edits, you run the risk of going in the opposite direction and not sounding like One Piece at all. Not everything needs to be this...
I've seen that before. There was one that they used JoJo sound effects and it was actually pretty clean.
And if you were to change that, if you were to suddenly make these One Piece with modern sound effects edits, you run the risk of going in the opposite direction and not sounding like One Piece at all. Not
yeah, that like, yo, what the fuck is that, bro? Dude, it sounds like some sort of death ray.
Everything needs to be this Unreal Engine, UFO table, Demon Slayer realism. There's an inherent whimsy and silliness that should always be a part of One Piece. But the problem is that there is a clear difference between being realistic and being believable. And there's sound effects in One Piece that just don't work anymore, man. Whether it's these reused 40-year-old Dragon Ball sound effects that have always...
Oh my god, dude, yeah. It's 80% of them come from Dragon Ball, straight up.
But the problem is that there is a clear difference between being realistic and being believable. And there's sound effects in One Piece that just don't work anymore, man. Whether it's these reused 40-year-old Dragon Ball sound effects that have always felt out of place within One Piece, or even the sound effects that were made for One Piece but have gradually become less and less fitting within the series as One Piece's animation and aesthetic have changed. It just is always going to be bizarre hearing those same gunshots or those same explosions or those same sword slashes when the animation now looks like this. And that leads me to my actual issue with One Piece's old sound design. It was never really about the sound effects themselves. Like, yeah, get rid of the Dragon Ball ones. Replace a few...
When you go into see Richard Chansard's comments and also Hone's comments too, the main criticism is that the sound effects that they have don't match what they're showing on screen. Hone specifically also said too that, hey, listen, some of these scenes are phenomenal scenes, but visually, they're so damn good, the sound has to match, and they just don't match.
Others here and there, but the actual major issue with One Piece's sound design is One Piece's sound design. Look, if you were to go back and watch the One Piece movies, or hell, even the older pre-2010 One Piece episodes, you'll notice more often than not that the sound design is actually decent.
Does it make sense given what they're showing on screen?
Wrong, but it's definitely better than how it is in Wano or Egghead. All the sounds and the effects and the ambience, they're all the same. There's nothing different about these sounds themselves. But the reason that it feels so much better is because there's simply more care being put into the design. The mixing, the leveling, the variety in what's chosen, it just feels more polished in a way that the recent episodes were absolutely lacking.
Okay,
now don't get me wrong, there's always been aspects of the sound design that's bothered me in One Piece. If you've just listened to the way the characters walk or run in this series, then you've already heard something that's haunted me for the past 15 years of my life. But I clearly remember the exact moment in the series where I was watching the episode and I thought to myself, oh, One Piece's sound design is bad.
Nice setting sound.
Wano's legendary first episode, helmed by the GOAT himself, Tatsuya Nagamine, was such a shock to most longtime viewers of the anime that...
Tatsuya Nagamine, I think, is the guy that decided that he was the one that convinced One Piece to Toei to upgrade their animation for Wano Country moving forward. And I think it's because also you saw the rise of Demon Slayer and JJK with their image quality. So he was the guy, he died. I think he passed away like 2 years ago. But he was the guy that really made the change to One Country or to One Piece that you see now.
I don't think anyone was even thinking about criticisms at the time. I mean, who would have ever thought that the One Piece TV anime would ever look this good? The art and the comp were honestly comparable.
And also it kind of comes to heels too, where like, I feel like a lot of people too, they thought that the anime was always an inferior product rather than a manga. But I think Wano changed that quite a bit. I would say like, come the time you have the finale of the Katakuri fight, and then later on, when you have Wano Country, I think that people start changing their minds a lot about how the anime was viewed.
And I was basking in that same amazement with everyone else until we got to the final scene of the episode with Zoro's seppuku. What follows here is an incredibly well-animated sequence done by another GOAT, Takashi Kojima, that was completely let down by its horrible sound design. The visual excitement and tension of watching Zoro cut down all of these guys was completely neutered by the dumbest, most unfitting slash sound effect being repeated over and over again ad nauseum. And from that point on, it became harder and harder not to notice it in a production that was otherwise firing on all cylinders. Wano became an absolute spectacle in animation that was constantly let down by its sound design and by its audio. Even in its most famous and iconic scenes, I could never stop thinking about how much better they would be if the sound was actually done by somebody who gave a shit about what they were working on.
I don't know if like it's gave a shit, but like I think they just got complacent. Where again, because they're so used to using the sound effects for like decades upon decades, for not only One Piece but for a different series, they just kind of got too comfortable with the sound effects, and they didn't really aspire to change them or really improve them any way.
Remember who I just mentioned, Hone, the guy who was calling for the sound team to be fired? Well, I don't blame him, because he gave us one of the most inventive and exhilarating...
He did. Yo, this guy knows ball. This guy understands, because like this is the best fight sequence in the entire One Piece by far. But actually, no, it is. It is. Episode 1074, I watch to this day too. I watch it to this day. That fight between Kaido and Luffy on the rooftop was fucking phenomenal. Where it ends off with the Bagua, the Raitoku, the Raime Hake, that fight sequence for 3 minutes or 4 minutes is goated. Like, I don't think it's even possible to beat that, but we'll see.
Action sequences that I've ever seen put to anime. And then the sound team proceeded to make a complete mockery of it. They just thoughtlessly spammed sound effects like...
Yeah, right there. You're right there.
Then the sound team proceeded to make a complete mockery of it.
If you can hear past what he's saying, that sound effect is that's a Dragon Ball sound effect. That's a straight up Dragon Ball. Like, that blast breath is like when Kaido fires up at Luffy when he's in the air. And then that sort of reverberating, echoey beam sound effect, that right there, straight up from Dragon Ball, 100%.
That I've ever seen put to anime. And then the sound team proceeded to make a complete mockery of it. They just thoughtlessly spammed sound effects like they usually do, and also didn't even bother adding sound effects for other visual flourishes within the sequence. It was an absolute joke.
Like the stars over his head, and then you have like the Bluetooth sound effect. Yeah, look at that.
There's so many examples of this. Zoro versus King, Luffy versus Kizaru. Literally any time Eustace Kid activates his power, and you have...
Oh my god, yeah, the sound effect when Kid has his metal powers up, that sound effect is the same one you hear in Namek in oh my god, it's the same one you hear in Planet Namek when the planet's about to erupt. You have the lighting effects that are in the crater in the area. You have that kiki like that sound. Like it's the same shit.
Luffy versus...
That's what I mean. It's like they don't like they didn't update their shit.
Kizaru, literally anytime Eustace Kid activates his power and you have to hear that horrifying electricity effect, these are the kinds of things that keep me up at night. Even episode 1015, famously
best episode of One Piece.
The best episode of One Piece, one of my favorite episodes of anything, period. Ishigami is such a meticulous director that you don't really see the same sound issues in her episode. She's just got such a tight control of everything within that they don't really manifest as much. But there's a part in 1015 that always bothers me when I rewatch this episode, and it's when Yamato is talking to Ace in this flashback, and
the chain sound effect? There's no way, bro.
You hear that same chain jingling.
The chain jiggling guy, the chain jiggling caught him, boys.
Sound effect played over and over again whenever Yamato moves her arms. Why, man? Why is it like this? It's actually distracting me from this otherwise incredible scene. And sure, I'm sure nobody else gives a shit about this, but I have PTSD, man. This series has done something to my brain. You couldn't record one alternate take of how those chains sound? You couldn't lower the volume of them even a little bit so they don't distract from the actual voiceover?
Ah, okay, so he really is also about the idea of, it's not just, you know, the stuff itself, it's just how you use it. Like, okay, yeah, like, let's say when she swings her arm more aggressively, it's a louder sound. Which does it more subtly, it's a lower sound. So it shows you a certain degree of variety and care with how you utilize the sound effect, not just actually having it.
And that's what really gets me, man. Beyond choosing the sound effects, beyond spamming them over and over, it baffles me that the one thing the sound team can't do...
Dragon Ball sound effects, the Dragon Ball, these are all from Dragon Ball.
Spamming them over and over.
Goku versus Cell.
It baffles me that the one thing
beam volleys
the sound team can't do is just
yeah, bro, that's just that's straight from Dragon Ball, bro.
Mix them properly. I can do that in my video editor with a single drag of my mouse.
You can make more varied sound effects, yeah, not just spam them. Yeah, I mean, like when I edit videos, when I did. No, I still do. But when I do edit videos and I like my own editing, I do a lot of variations and gradations of sound effects or various visual effects. Like sometimes, like one thing I used to do, for example, is that like whenever I used to, when I was recording a video, when I was recording a video, and then let's say it was raining outside, thunderstorm, and then you could hear the thunder outside. I'd always have like NL laughing in the background, like subtly, like you hear a very faint yeah, and then I'll just keep you pushing. So, but yeah, like that's just like a detail to attention. But they don't have that sort of care. At least according to what he's saying, and he is kind of pointing out a very good point. Like the chain scene with Yamato, it's the same chain sound effect at the same level. It doesn't really take like they're not trying to adjust it in any way, or let's say prolong it, or let's say with certain hand motions it'd be fainter, with other ones it'd be louder. They're not really doing that, and so it's the same it's the same chain sound effect, but it's utilized in a much more there's no pitch control. There's no attention to detail in that sense, which makes sense.
How do you work in this industry for so many decades, and you don't think to yourself that maybe Killer's blades don't need to be that loud? This is a very obnoxious sound effect. Maybe we can make it a bit better by lowering the volume. Maybe those blood drops landing on the ground shouldn't be as loud as the characters who are talking in this scene. Just a thought.
The iconic stuff back in the day, I can understand that. Like the crocodile scene was meant to emphasize the moment, so that's what the blood sound bigger. Other scenes, who knows?
Even sound effects or voice lines in this series that are competent can still sound amateur if they're not all mixed and equalized within the production properly. And that's ultimately where things would stand if I had made this video years ago like I originally intended. But I put it off for so long that we have reached a miracle. The previous sound designer of the One Piece anime,
yep, he's gone,
has left.
Yep, that's where things changed up. He couldn't adapt.
They retired, they went somewhere else, I don't know for certain, but what I do know is that they have been replaced with a new sound designer, Naofumi Jimbo, and a new...
Naofumi Jimbo, let me see here. Oh, he did Strong World? Oh, my boy.
I do know is that they have been replaced with a new sound designer, Naofumi Jimbo.
He did Daima, Strong World, the stuff with Island Logs, the regular high school show, don't know what that is.
And a new sound effects guy, Ryuta Nakahara.
Dude. Oh, okay.
But even still, I didn't want to get my hopes up. I've gotten my hopes up in the past and was always let down. I remember Fishman Island Remaster, they were promising new sound design, still sounded the exact same.
Yeah, for the most part.
Egghead Part 2, I remember there was talks of new sound design, still sounded the exact same. I wasn't sure what Elbaf would bring, but god damn it, they actually did it. The current One Piece anime has sound design that I can genuinely say is good. I don't have to be generous, I don't have to overlook any glaring issues. The series actually sounds good now. It's not perfect, and we'll get into that, but by and large, the anime has directly addressed everything that we've been talking about this entire...
Yeah, that Yasop bullet scene sold me. That shit, with the flintlock actually hitting the match, the bullet leaving the chamber, the attention to detail, sort of a Doppler effect where the bullet is closer to you so it sounds louder, and then when it travels it sounds more fainter. I'm like, okay. Now we're that Yasop bullet scene. Yo, let me run that back. Let me. No. Yasop. Give me it. Yo, Yasop was a savage. Bro, just him cocking the gun sounds good. Sounds like something you see in fucking Resident Evil. Or you're hearing Resident Evil. Bam! Slow motion to emphasize it. So they kept the same stuff like that they normally have for the explosion, but the process to it is just so much cleaner. It's just so much cleaner. Oh my god. I would say if they need more time, a year to, let's say, you know, the 6 months they take to break for, you know, the 2 cores, to have better sound like this, fuck it, cook. Oh. Even when the explosion like races towards Bartolomeo, you have that whoo. Like it's attention to detail that does go a step beyond what they were doing in the last arc.
Entire video. There's actual thought and care being put into the placements and mixing of the sound effects. No more spamming, no more over-leveled garbage. The variety is much better. There's new sound effects being interwoven with the old to give it a fresh feeling while still retaining the audio identity that One Piece is known for. There's unique and interesting audio direction and cues.
Yeah, Usopp Explosion 2 with the feel at the end. Yeah, it was really good.
Identity that One Piece is
he knows ball.
There's unique and interesting audio direction and cues that you would never have seen in the older episodes. Walking actually sounds good. Blood dropping actually sounds good. The chains actually sound good now. I'm free. This is definitely a new
We're not Loki.
New era for One Piece, and I am so happy to see the way that things happen.
The one thing though is that, and then here's my fear with One Piece in the future of the series right now. I don't know if Toei is actually making a net benefit from One Piece being seasonal. I feel like they could be making it like even though it does sound better. So per episode is going to be probably a lot better in terms of quality. I feel like at least I'm partly afraid that they actually may be losing money. And so they may want to revert back to their old ways. Because they're losing money, I think, for the time being. But in the long haul, they'll benefit from this. That's what I think.
Proved. But I said it wasn't perfect, and beyond nitpicks, if I had any noteworthy criticism to say about the sound design as it currently stands, it would be the ambience. This is yet another thing that has always been a part of the One Piece anime.
What, the setting, the weather?
Remember, and the simplest way that I can describe it is dead air. When the characters are talking, when you're soaking in the ambience of a scene, the one thing you really don't want to hear, unless it's completely intentional, is that dead air effect. Nothing reminds me more than I'm watching a relatively stretched out and padded chapter of a manga than when I'm hearing the characters talk to each other in a One Piece episode, and if there isn't any music, it legitimately sounds like I'm just listening to them recording straight out of the booth. It just feels empty and not very rich. Compare that to a more lavish production where even when nothing is going on in a scene and no music is playing, they can still fill out these environments with so much auditory detail. In the most recent episode, there's more than a...
Okay, that's an interesting take. Okay, so that's sort of like background rumbling or like that sort of stagnation you get in the audio. He doesn't like that per se. He wants it to be filled in with, let's say, the environment around him. Which is not necessarily, it's not a bad take.
Few sections where the only bits of ambience that you get in the environment are these very...
Like right there, you have like just like the wind blowing in the snow.
Simple landscapes, a windy snowstorm, or a quiet sea ship. They're very surface level. I don't feel like I'm actually in these places when I listen to these. Ideally, you want these scenes to be a lot richer and a lot more multi-layered. And I know somebody is going to tell me, well, Venom, those scenes are supposed to be quiet. They're supposed to be contemplative. And sure, but you would still be shocked at how even quiet scenes like these can be elevated so much by still having a richer, more complex ambience. So that's my note for the current One Piece sound team. You guys are doing a great job so far, but I hope you keep improving and keep pushing the envelope and bring
good video.
The series to an even higher caliber that
good video. Very good video on the sound.
I'm just really happy to see Toei's
because again, like you can just tell, like for me personally, like there have been moments where I've noticed the sound has changed in various ways. Sometimes for the better, actually most times for the worse though. Of course, the years. I just give the example of Geppo, the moonwalk shit, and then on top of that, you can see like back like pre Elbaf. A lot of these sound effects were, honest to God, just repurposed Dragon Ball sound effects, like almost bar for bar.
Actually pushing.
But he did make a very good comment here too, where it's like obviously there's gonna be moments where they're gonna use the same sound effect and then they're not gonna try to adjust it. Like you can have the same sound effect of Dragon Ball Z per se, but if you adjust a certain way to where it makes better sense, like the scenes where Garp, holy shit, when Garp fights against Kuzan and then he does the Dragon Ball power up bar for bar, he does the actual Super Saiyan power up. It's like, yo, you gotta be kidding me, man. Like there's no way, but they do it.
Beyond its stagnation here, I really didn't think it would ever happen. I thought I would be complaining about this till the end of time. I appreciate them improving. I appreciate them actually trying to do justice to the insane art and animation team that it's assembled. But I'm also quite looking forward to Wit Studios' adaptation as well, where I really do think, unless there's some backdoor dealings where Toei is forcing Wit to only use their proprietary sound library, I really think Wit Studios
That would be a
version
bit
is where you're
much.
going to see some truly top-level sound design in One Piece for the very first time. I can't wait for that. I can't wait for more Toei Piece. It's a good time to be a One Piece fan in general, and if you are a fan just like I am, then I highly
I like how we're
recommend
calling it
joining
Toei
the
Piece at this
Discord
point in time
server
because
in
the
the
version's coming out
description
later. That's
below.
pretty crazy.
There's a lot of One
Yeah, the
Piece
Wit
fans on
version
there.
and
There's a
Toei
lot of
version.
cool people on there in general, and I'm sure that me and everybody else would love to chat if you stopped on by. Like the video if you
Okay.
enjoyed, subscribe for more. I hope you're
That was a good video. That was actually a pretty good video. A pretty good video. I liked it. Because again, like the sound design has been something that people have complained about for a while. And then the fact that we actually have something that really genuinely fits in now, it's great. It really is great. All right. So good stuff with the video. Appreciate you guys. All right. Yasop, get rid of that. I don't want to see this, dude. Okay, so there's more news to get to.